Welcome to the Customer Wins podcast, where business leaders discuss their secrets and techniques for helping their customers succeed and in turn grow their business.
Hi, I'm Rich Walker, the host of The Customer Wins, where I talk to business leaders about how they help their customers win and how their focus on customer experience leads to growth. Today is a special episode in my series on new and emerging solutions, and today's guest is Mark Ovaska, the co-founder of Precept. And today's episode is brought to you by Quick, the leader in enterprise forms processing. When your business relies upon processing forms, don't waste your team's valuable time manually reviewing the forms. Instead, get Quick. Using Quick, you'll be able to generate completed forms and get back clean, context-rich data that reduces manual reviews to only 1 out of 1,000 submissions. Visit quickforms.com to get started. All right, I'm really excited to introduce today's guest. Mark Ovaska has 25 years experience leading internet technology platforms across finance, media, and entertainment. He's a product executive with a proven track record navigating from early stage to growth and acquisitions, using first principles to uncover true customer demand and achieve operational excellence. Man, Mark, we all need to be doing that. Today, Mark is on a mission to eliminate the complexity of data integrations as the co-founder of Precept. Mark, welcome to The Customer Wins.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here.
I'm excited to talk to you. So for those who haven't heard this podcast before, I just love to talk to business leaders about what they're doing to help their customers win, how they built and deliver a great customer experience, and the challenges to growing their own company. So Mark, let's understand your business a little bit better. How does your company help people?
It's a great question. When you have great data, customer experiences tend to be really good, right? If you want to delight your customers, you want to give them the right information at the right time. And foundationally, that requires the right information at the right time, coming from the right source at the right time, and all the complexities that come downstream. So at the end of all of that, great experiences come from great data, and we're working on the data part of it.
Man, I love that answer. You know, I run a forms company, but what most people don't realize is I run a data company. And it's not that I take in people's data, it's that I make their data accessible and available to the documents they're trying to work on. So when we talk about what the data is you're talking about, there's a lot of data, account data, and new account opening information, and client records, and who knows what all. What are you talking about when it comes to data?
More specifically, I'm talking about data that needs to be connected to other data, because that's where my head's been at for about 18 months is data transparency, data portability. Because if you look at the truly, again, to go back to the delightful experiences, the really delightful experiences, what you have is you have a threading of data that almost never comes from a single source. And so it's not just the surfacing of the data at the right time. That's kind of like an application level, like Amazon makes sure that you see the right thing at the right time and you're seeing shoes and not cars or whatever it is. But all of that data has to come from some place, and it's usually a myriad of places. And so when I think about it right now, given the challenges that I'm trying to solve within finance, I think about that. I think about portability from different sources, really, and how that bubbles up. You can't lose sight of the fact that it's very, very entrenched. But if you have delightful experiences, then you also have growth. You have growth trajectory, and it's just a great way to run a business.
So I struggle with the word portability because I'm not sure everybody understands what's meant by that. And I want to use an example. This happened to me yesterday to see what your thoughts are on this. So I flew on Delta Airlines yesterday, and I have the app, and I have my boarding pass in my wallet. My flight gets delayed. The app tells me my flight's delayed with a new boarding time. My wallet does not. So whenever I look at the wallet boarding pass, I'm confused because it has the old time on it. And it didn't translate the data. Is that a portability problem? Is that a connectivity problem? How would you view that? Because that's a bad experience, right?
That's a bad experience. Yeah, that's a portability. I mean, it's some foundational sense. It's a portability problem. If you go and one vendor, so you go to Amazon, and then Amazon puts you over to a shipping company, and your information is wrong there or is blank and it has to be rekeyed. that's a portability problem, right? So data has to live in multiple places at the same time. And right now, I think the experience of having to manually make data portable, so it's like in your head, you've got to put it in this place, and then okay, later on you've got to put it here, or you've got to translate the fact that your ticket in your wallet's different than the thing that's on your phone, and you've got to think about it. Like, it takes these cognition cycles. We're used to that, and unfortunately, that makes it a lot harder to change it. Like, if
Yeah.
people were frustrated by that experience and thinking about it the way you're thinking about it, it's like, what? Why is this? Can this not be this way? Then I think innovation would actually go a little bit quicker.
So, like in wealth management, you may have a financial advisor asking clients to fill out an intake form to gather their data. They'll put that into a financial planning system, a proposal system, a hypothetical system. Later, they want to get that into a form. They want to
Mm-hmm.
populate their CRM. And we know not all this sings together, right? It's not in harmony. So, is that a problem you're solving?
Yeah, that's a problem we're solving, but it more so than just Precept. It's a problem that has to be solved. If you want to grow, standardization becomes more important. And I mean that in kind of the broadest sense, right? Like we can't, every single car that's being manufactured can't be a different width outside of some constraint, right? Like the things that we make, every pipe that we get from the plumbing store can't be a different gauge, just wildly different. Like, consistency is essential for scale. And so that's not just true, I think, fundamentally, but it's also sort of the starting point of how I started to think about these things. Is like, if you have standardization, then this other whole world of opportunity comes to you when it comes to portability and efficiency of like creating things that are more portable. And then you can get, this is the scary part, then you can get like a little bit higher and say, okay, now the objects that are portable, whether it's a form or whatever, if you've standardized it, then you can make the standardization portable. And that's when it gets kind of woo-woo-y.
Okay, so this is why I'm a data company first, because
Yeah.
I looked at the form and I said, hey, it's just displaying data, right? Your first name and your last name and your address, et cetera. And all the forms ask for the same data: first name, last name, address, social, blah, blah,
Yep.
blah. So why don't we define all the forms with the same data fields? And so we did. And we built the quick field definition, which today is over 1.2 million fields of defined,
Yep.
capable, repetitive fields.
Yeah.
But and I know this problem really, really well, Mark, because at one
Exactly.
point I had integration to 35 different data sources to fill out forms.
Oof.
What we did is we essentially normalized how the data flows to the form. We had to build
Yeah.
35 different interfaces to those systems to get the data, which meant we had to do
Yeah.
the work 35 times.
That's
And it
right.
took years and a ton of cost. But this
Exactly.
is where your product is really amazing. So tell me how you solve that problem. If you're trying to normalize the data into some other system, how are you solving it? I know the answer, by
Yeah.
the way.
No, I was blown away. I think we talked and you showed me that list of a couple months ago, and I was just like, wow, he's done it. But the amount of work, I immediately appreciated the amount of work that went into that, like just understanding it. And I want to make a comment kind of more broadly about technology being in closer proximity of the people who are experts about the data. But to get back to your point, right away, when you have all of these different standardizations across, how many of them do you have? Yours
Well, we had 34 at the time. We don't support that many anymore. It's too much work. We have like a
is not
dozen now.
sustainable at scale.
Well, some of those companies no longer exist as well.
Yeah. Well, so the maintenance is a whole other topic we could probably spend an hour on. Um, but no, so standardization. Once you've actually, there's two. I think there's two inflection points to answer your question. I think the first is that AI makes things a lot easier. AI is really pretty good at mapping things, right? And it has its fringes. There's points where you have to take something that's they don't quite fit, right? Um, but by and large, AI is pretty good at saying, this is first name and the other one's, name underscore first or whatever. It's good that way. And so I think the technological advantages that way have helped solve that. And we certainly lean on those. But I do think the standardization is a big piece of it. if, for example, you build those 35 integrations, and this is like the other level of portability that I was talking about. If you solve those 35 integrations, and then the result of you solving that can be plucked out of your platform and plugged into any other platform, then those people don't have to reinvent that wheel. And so I think I try to communicate it as, please don't reinvent the API wheel. You might have to invent it once, but you should never have to invent it again.
Yeah. And that's actually what we did way back when. So I had to throw back the database connectivity. It was data sources, but to us, it was databases. We call it the quick database connector, the QDBC. Yeah. And if anybody's technical, they'll remember ODBC and Microsoft object database connection. Anyway, we stole that. I'm really getting geeky here. Sorry. We actually deployed it as a product, and one of our customers, Fidelity, could take it, plug it into one of their applications, and now they could talk to Act and Goldmine and Excel and Outlook and text files and CSV just without doing any extra work, because whatever data source it was, it transformed all the data to the same outcome. Therefore, they just mapped to that outcome, which was our field definition, of course. But I don't want you to gloss over the impact AI is having here, because what you guys are doing is building interfaces to different APIs in like seconds, not months of work, but like minutes of work. How does that change the landscape in what you're doing and how you're helping people then?
It makes new integrations a real-time proposition. And so one of the things that I get asked probably more than anything else is, how many integrations do you have, or how many integrations can you make? And my response is always, the number, but I try not to say the number because I think it's actually the wrong question. That's an old question. That's like an old world question of, how many integrations have you built? Because it took a long time to build them. And it was like a mark of pride of like, I've got 100 integrations. It's taken me 4 years to get it, or whatever it is. Like today, integrations can be done in real time. And so whether or not you have the integration isn't the right question. The question that you ought to be asking, not you, but whoever, the question that I wish I would get is, do you have the documents for this? And are you ready to go? Because that's all you need. You need the data model or the documentation or some artifact to feed into the AI engine and hit process.
So I have a bad analogy to this, but you just made me think of somebody saying, hey, how many pairs of shoes do you own? When they should be asking, can you run right now?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Are you ready to go to the ball or train or whatever it is? Exactly.
Yeah. I don't need to diagnose how many shoes you have, because you only wear three out of the 30 pairs you own. Are you just ready to go?
Yeah.
Mark, this is a really, really interesting time from my standpoint, and I know from you and your partner's standpoint, because you and I are both doing things. Your firm and my firm are both doing things with AI that I don't know very many who are.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know anybody else who is. And that is, you've created the ability to build software so fast that it becomes negligible cost-wise and time-wise to do it. And that's what Precept is doing in my mind. Like, you are building interfaces so fast that it's like, why does this have to be a roadblock anymore to how you want to do business? Just turn it on, just use it. Maybe there's a little bit of configuration that goes into it, but you're done. Do you think that's a fair assessment of what's going on?
It is. No, it is a fair assessment. I was talking to, shout out to Tony Leal. I was talking to Tony earlier this week, and he and I were just kind of comparing notes on this exact thing. And you and I talked about it a little while ago. It changes the way you approach business, but it's not, there's a human moment, right? Like, it's not natural for me, right? Like, I'm 45. I've spent a majority of my career working in tech the old way, right? And so like, I still, and this is the reason why we think of like AI like as agents, because we have to like put it in a box that's kind of like a human, so we can conceptualize how powerful it is. And I think that's an intermediary stage. Like, I think we're in a transition stage, and we have to do those things because we can't otherwise fully appreciate what's happening. We don't know how to talk about it right still.
Yeah.
And so, we can do these things in real time, and we've I don't know if we're at the bleeding edge, but we're certainly ahead. And the way I think about it is starting to change, because the economics around software is fundamentally changing. And to bring it back to the podcast, and like the topic at hand is like, how do you bundle those things up to make a customer experience that's so delightful that people can't differentiate between like magic? It should be. It should come back to like the magic. Like when I was a kid and I was using software, and I was like, "This is magical." The first time I logged into the internet, 1998 or whatever. It's like, this is magical. We need to get back to that. I think we can.
So I'm going to give a real world example that I have for myself, because I was just at I was at the Beacon Roundtable conference, and time zone wise, I was up at 4:30 in the morning. So I had some time. And there was a project that I wanted to run, which was to take a website that had been designed by AI and turn it into a functional website built from scratch in a different tech stack. So it had call it the golden image of what I wanted built design wise and what I wanted to actually make functional. And so I ran this autonomous programming system.
You did just for fun?
This is what I'm doing. Like, this is my side project because I'm interested in trying to figure out things. It's like tinkering on cars on the weekends. This is what I do, right?
I love it.
So I ran it, and later in the day, I'm sitting in this conference, and my CTO is like, "I wonder how long it actually took to run, because it finished. Like, it finished it all before I had to go to the conference 2 hours later." So I asked it, "Go look at all the timestamps in the logs and tell me how long it ran." And it came back and said, "Hey, this project is estimated to take humans anywhere from 40 to 45 to 70 hours of work to do. The time frame in which it finished it was 75 minutes.
Wow.
That's a 44.5 times, like 44.5x multiplier faster."
Right.
Now, I'm not saying it was perfect, bug-free, like done 100%, but this is what we're talking about.
You can do it 45 times to get it right and still be on par.
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy. This is the game changer aspect of what's going on right now. Is companies like yours are finding ways to enable other companies to go 10 times, 100 times faster in what they had to do so that they can deliver that better experience. And so, I mean, I just wanted to give that example as real world, because I've seen you guys doing this too.
Yeah. It's good to have the conversation, because I've gone from the same journey that a lot of people have, which is AI is not a thing, or we talk about it and it was really just machine learning, right? Circa 2 years ago, back when dinosaurs were alive. And then AI hits the ground, you're like, okay. And I was sort of like a late adopter. It took me a couple months to even check it out after all the breakthroughs. And then it took me another year to rejoin with my business partner Nate Obley and Warren Seymour, and we started really looking at this and just blown away. And so it's like a roller coaster, like you're like, oh well, now we can do this, but now what? And you've got to kind of climb back up the hill, and it's not a technological hill, it's like a strategy hill. Right? Because you're like, well, what do you do with a strategy when the economics of building software are completely different? And if you want to build something, you can try it out right away. And do you build lots of things and then test them? These are like these weird questions to be asking.
Yeah. I just spoke with a firm a few weeks ago, their CEO. I won't name the firm because I need to have him on the show. I'll let him tell the story. But he just spent the last 2 years using AI to rebuild entire tech stack for his broker dealer and RIA firm. And he said, "Rich, I'm ditching all vendors, not us." He likes us. You can't replace forms with AI. He's like, "But I'm ditching all the vendors. I built a bespoke system that does exactly what I want. I didn't build it to sell to anybody else." He said it was just so cost effective to build it myself and own it. And it's so cost effective to change it and maintain it now.
Yeah.
So it's a really fascinating time in software, because there's opportunity for companies like ours. You're building tool sets and capabilities that make people go faster in what they want to accomplish for their overall goals. But it's also a challenge to the traditional software model. Like, where does this leave you? If you can build your own billing system, why do you need QuickBooks or whatever?
I think there's going to be a lot of disruption. I think this is me predicting the future. So I'm really bad at this, but here I go. I,
Also predicting the future.
we all suck at predicting the future. It's true. I think that's like a universally true statement. I think that software is going to be hyper personalized. I think it's going to be the stuff that you consume. It's not like everyone's going to go out and buy TurboTax to do their taxes.
Yeah.
They're going to have Mark Ovaska's specific tax software, and it's going to be for you. I was working. It was a fun story. I was working for a really large family office for in New York, and I didn't know this. I was young, and I hadn't really been exposed to this sort of thing. And they had this story about like how customized the view for this wealthy person was across all of these different touch points. And then I had another friend who worked for a billionaire and as an audio engineer. Long story, but he seconded that. We kind of compared notes, and he's like, yeah, there's all the experience for this person at this level has been so shaped and crafted that it becomes like a bubble. It's like being the president. You forget that there's stop signs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you're just like in this weird bubble. And I wonder / worry that software being super cheap and super focused on individual people, that we'll get delightful customer experience and it'll go so far that we'll actually kind of have this more existential like issue of all of these tools being so personalized.
So I do think that personalization is going to be greatly enhanced. I actually, my own prediction is that we're going to go to a website that's marketing something to us. It's going to recognize us some manner. It's going to change its color scheme to my preferred color scheme. It's going to change language to my preferred language and speaking tone and whatever. And it's going to know my preferences so that it can market to me better than it does today. I think stuff like that's absolutely going to happen. But there's a realism side to this. It's really, really hard to accomplish this stuff. And it's like there's a lot of frameworks that have to be built. There's a lot of intermediary steps that have to be built. I believe, to make all of this really easy to do at scale. Because you talk about like a billionaire having their glass pane to look at their world. It's affordable to them to have a highly customized system just for them, right?
Sure.
But somebody who's only got $100,000 and they're just signing up with an investment for the first time or whatever, how customized can it be for them? So to get there, we have to have data, we have to have insights, we have to have intelligence, and we have to have systems that can adapt and morph to those types of capabilities. And I don't think we're there yet. I think there's a lot of foundational layers that are going to get built to get us there first.
I agree with you. I think it's going to be faster than we think. I think it's going to be really fast. I think it's going to be surprisingly fast. We're so early on these things that you kind of have to have an engineering mind or computer science background or whatever to really kind of make these tools work. I think that's about 12 months. This podcast will live for longer than that, so we'll go back and we can make fun of me. But that'll be the fun part. But the tools aren't going to be geeky for very long, because you'll essentially be able to create the tools, and it's going to become more and more consumer. And the more and more consumer it gets, the cheaper it's going to be for people to say, I want a bespoke TurboTax just for me. And you get that kind of billionaire experience. I think it'll happen quick.
I want to offer something that I don't know if everybody gets here. The reason you can say that, Mark, is because you're building a fabric layer for others to leverage. You're building an interface layer that people can leverage and therefore go faster. Like you have that view that is possible. So let me give you a different example. Most people have seen Star Wars, and most people have seen R2-D2 stick out a probe, turn it in some key thing on some wall at the Death Star or some ship or whatever. Nobody asks, how in the world can he do that? Right? Nobody has assessed, do they all run the same software? Do they all run the same hardware? Do they all run the same systems? Is R2-D2 actually a part of the Death Star? Like nobody knows this stuff. So we're now with AI and what you're talking about with interfaces and AI helping you build interfaces really fast. We're starting to actually see clearly how R2-D2 can do that. Like he's
Right.
got some AI in there that's saying, let me read the
I see what
system,
you mean.
understand it, and let me
Yeah.
figure out how to talk
Yep.
to it. Right?
Yeah. 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 So my answer is sort of like it's strongly informed by the fact that I spend every day thinking about how those other tools are going to be solving that problem, right? But they all
Yeah.
have to kind of come together. Yeah, I see what you're saying. It's true. It's
Because
true.
it's a challenging thing. This is where I struggle. The wealth
Mm.
management industry has had decades to all come out with their own APIs to share data, to open accounts, et cetera. None of them have agreed with each other on how to do that. None of
It's
them.
crazy.
This is why Quick exists. We have built the de facto
Yeah,
standard of
yeah,
data standards across forms and therefore account opening
that's right.
systems, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But think about banking in general. They've all agreed on what an ATM should do and how it should communicate. That's why you can go to
right.
Wells Fargo with your Bank of America account and make it work.
Yeah,
But wealth management hasn't done that. And
yeah,
why? Because that's exceptionally
yeah.
hard to get everybody to agree on the standards. So when we talk about AI building all this tech, I think the advancement AI is giving us is in some ways not to worry about the standards because you can call
Yep.
28 different APIs and standardize it and abstract from those APIs and then standardize it on the back end or the output end. I mean, that's really the power of what you're doing. And I think what I'm doing is we're taking
Mm.
all the different data needs and putting them into one standard as we go so that people can actually build other systems on top of them and go faster.
I have a slightly different take on that. I agree with you, but maybe this is too cynical. You can tell me. But my take on that is philosophical, and it's that when something is really difficult to achieve or deeply personal, humans really like to think that it's a differentiation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if I make my own shirt by hand, I'm going to wear that shirt, or at least I'll be very strongly inclined to walk around and be like, this makes me unique, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't. It's a shirt, just like everybody else. And so I think when it comes to integration, the stuff that you're talking about, like, people spend a lot of time on these things, and they're hard to do, and so they they label it with differentiator. I've got to differentiate because I've connected these two platforms or whatever else it is. When you're forced to recalibrate that because of the power of the technology, you have to come back and ask a really crucial and hard to answer question, which is what is it that's your differentiator if those things aren't?
Mm-hmm.
And then people are so my all of that to say, yes, there are 1,000 different ways in wealth tech to see things and so on and so forth. People are grasping at those differences and resisting standardization, not always, of course, but resisting standardization because they see it as their unique value proposition. And what I'm really suggesting with Precept at a kind of a philosophical level is that if you standardize and you embrace standardization, it will release you from the obligation of thinking that just because it's hard, it makes you special.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go find something that really, truly is special that will attract
Yeah.
your customers and delight them.
Yeah. I really like that concept. It goes along with me thinking that I should work 12-hour days, 80-hour weeks for 12 years, and that's what was going to build my company because it wasn't. It
Exactly.
wasn't. It was
Exactly. I
hard.
learned the
I
same
must be
lesson.
successful. No, I wasn't.
Yeah. 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 I don't remember who it was. Somebody famous, Bezos or somebody was. You don't get bonus points for working too hard. Like if you can do
Yeah.
something really simple, set up the coffee shop across the street from Starbucks because you know it's a good location. Like just do that. Like,
Yeah. I had a question about this that I wanted to really ask you. And it, it's along the lines of how you make money with this. And
mm,
so as I was kind of contemplating like how do people pay for what you're doing, et cetera, I think
yeah,
it always has to come back to what is the value they're getting. And the value that they're getting is speed, efficiency, flexibility, real-time flexibility, et cetera. So the
yep,
real question I was driving at in my head as I was kind of streaming through this was, Everybody in this industry is so fascinated with agentic workflows for their advisors. Save time for the advisor, do work for the advisor, think for the advisor, et cetera, right?
Yeah.
But isn't the data the footprint? Isn't that the underpinnings to make this possible? So are you guys fueling or making possible agentic workflows? I do see that as what you're possibly enabling.
Yes. The short answer is yes. And the longer answer is AI is built on data, and data has to have that connectivity and portability that we've already talked about. The standardization is important for the future, but the ability to make new integrations in real time using AI is bridging the gap between what exists today. You go to, I'm going to pick on Pershing, which is really unfair, but you go to Pershing or some of these large organizations that have a hard time, keeping up with things, and they don't have the latest API. They're not going to be able to, swivel on a dime and give you what you need. And so you've got to meet them where they are, right? They have value just right where they are. And so the technology is going to have this, I'm really into intermediary states, but transition phases. You're going to have this transition phase where the tech exists, but the primary purpose of the tech actually isn't the new thing. The primary purpose of the tech is to bridge the gap between what people are doing and don't understand what the new thing is and some lighter version of the new thing.
Yeah.
And that's a transitional phase.
So, okay, I'm actually excited to say this because a lot of people don't understand. They think the exciting business are the ones at the user edge. They're changing the experience. And I love that stuff. I do, right? Like the agentic workflow concept is so cool. The note takers are so cool, et cetera.
Yeah.
But people don't realize the value and I think the elegance of a utility system that can make things actually work under the seams. Like to me, forms and data flowing through a form into a new account opening system and that ability to process is the same thing as the plumbing and the concrete of the foundation of your house.
Yeah. You don't worry
Really
about it unless it leaks. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
exactly,
know.
right?
I know.
And this is why I like your company because you're doing something really, really similar. You're building foundational like plumbing that people can
Yeah.
rely upon and use and go faster with it.
It's a good observation. I'm not sure it's definitely not the easiest thing in the world to do, but it's born out of that attempt, right? Like the precursor to Precept and all the founders came out of AI Labs, which was the same sort of mission in terms of single pane of glass for advisors across any number of different platforms to solve the swivel tail problem, right? You've got 23 platforms that you have to deal with, and all the stats everybody's familiar with. But that's really good because you can say here's the single pane of glass and here's what it looks like. That's actually pretty easy and sexy to sell. You start talking about the data pipelines underneath, and it gets a lot harder to sell. But foundationally, what because of your business, those things are really critical. And so, coming from that experience and saying, is our ability to focus and move faster on these foundational infrastructure problems a net gain over being distracted with building the whole stack just so it's sexier to sell? That was one of the early questions that I had just in terms of like product strategy, right? Obviously, the answer that I concluded was there's a lot of work to do just to do the standardization and AI mapping and all of that. And so we really ought to focus on that and find partners who understand that they're the pane of glass, not us, and then help them.
Yeah. And this is why a lot of utility system or companies are hard to find. This is a hard sell. It's hard to go find the right person who understands it, wants it, implements it, uses it, sees all the value for it. I mean, look, that's the nature of having a cool idea and starting a business. But man, we have to switch gears because I'm running out of time and I want to get to my last question. But before I get there, what is the best way for people to find and connect with you?
Yeah, the best way is to reach out. It's Mark, my first name, MARK, at Precept, PRECEPT.sh. Find me on LinkedIn and so on. The website is the same domain, precept.sh, and the contact form, I get a copy of it. So I'll get back to you right away.
Awesome. All right. Switching gears. I love this question. Who has had the biggest impact on your leadership style and how you approach your role today?
I'm glad you gave me this as a prep because I wanted to think about this and be thoughtful. The first day I walked into AI Labs, I met Lori Hardwick, and she's stuck with me through the years. And so, shout out to Lori. Lori's a huge influence on me, the way I thought about things. And I worked with her very closely for a few months, and yeah, huge impact. So glad to be able to bring her up.
She's had a lot of great impacts on our industry with people. I've heard her story many times. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's
Right? I'm one of many, I'm sure.
But it's great. I mean, we need that, right? We need people who care, who want to see success and want to see new things come to light. And as you know, I mean, it's hard to navigate that. Dude, I did everything wrong in my business for decades. It's
well, that I think anybody who's been through this a few times, right? Like you win because you lose. Like winning is just taking the loss and moving on, learning the hard way,
Yeah, I think failure is spelled quit. QUIT.
Yeah.
I don't think failing and keeping going is actually failure. I think that's just learning.
Yeah.
It's just getting back up and trying again. All right,
that's the difference between. Sorry, I was just going to say that's the difference between people who are successful and people who aren't. Because you're absolutely right. That's exactly it.
Yeah. No, totally. All right, cool. So I want to give a huge thank you to Mark Ovaska, CEO and co-founder of Precept, for being on this episode of The Customer Wins. Go check out Mark's website at precept.sh. It'll be in the show notes. And don't forget to check out Quick at quickforms.com, where we make processing forms easier. I hope you enjoyed this discussion. We'll click the like button, share this with someone, and subscribe to our channels for future episodes of The Customer Wins. Mark, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Rich. So happy to be here. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Customer Wins podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.